This is the Flip Talk Podcast, Episode 11.
If I offer more money to my lenders, then more people will want to allow me to borrow their money.
This is Flip Talk,
where we flip houses and share the crazy details.
the good,
The bad.
and the ugly.
Yeah, we'll flip and tell.
No fluff, no bull, and no so-called experts.
Just real knowledge, tips, and tricks.
From the guys who actually do this every day.
Now let's get talking with your host,
Don Costa.
All right, everybody, this is episode 11 of the Flip Talk Podcast, and do I have a treat for you today? I have RJ Bates. RJ Bates was a guy in the construction field who happened to see that the grass was greener in real estate investing and decided to cross over into the real estate investing arena. He specializes in wholesaling, and I got to tell you, he's one of the nicest guys. I really enjoy all the guests so far. All the guests I've interviewed, I've had a really good time interviewing, talking to before and after, and since the interview. RJ is one of those guys where I think you'll notice was just more open than usual, right? And looked at things a little different way than I look at things. I've been in this business for a long time, and sometimes I get in my tunnel vision, like a lot of us do, on how I do things. And he just kind of had a unique way of approaching a few things. Just really opened the door to a lot of questions for me. I don't even think I got all my questions into the podcast, but it was a really good podcast. It really kind of, it flowed. And we just kind of, got more information out than I think I normally do. He was one of the nicest guys, like I said, really open, really willing to share, and definitely somebody I'm going to have back on again because I have a lot more questions for him. RJ went from swinging a hammer to over $1 million a year. And he's going to talk about how he accomplished some of that in this podcast. It is a real treat. We talk about quite a few things, from subject twos to working with private money to, locating deals to structuring, some of the staff in your office. And definitely somebody, like I said, I'm going to have on and take a deeper dive back into at a later date and see if we can really get down to the nuts and bolts of his operation. But the information that we got on this one was really darn good as well. So anyway, without further ado, here is the interview with RJ. So RJ, thank you very much for being with me today, man. I really appreciate your time. So, hey, how you doing today, buddy?
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me, and look forward to talking shop with you.
Perfect. So RJ, why don't you do me a favor and just kind of break down for me kind of how you got started in this business and what you're doing right now today.
Well, my company is Titanium Investments. We're based out of Dallas, Fort Worth. And I started off in construction and remodeling, contracting. Basically, I was being hired by the investors to do their flips. And it very quickly got to the point where I was like, man, I'm on the wrong side of this transaction. I'm doing
wrong side
all
of the hammer.
hard work. Yeah, right. I'm like doing a lot of work, not really making a lot of money. It's hard. And, I just started asking questions to the investors that were hiring me. They were solid mentors. They were good guys. They shared information to me. They taught me how they were getting properties from wholesale companies. Mm-hmm. And I started doing research on what is a wholesale company, how do they wholesale properties, how do they find it. And in the long run, we finally got to the point where it's like, okay, I'm going to try to find a property. I'm going to try to wholesale it. And we started putting in offers and properties in Fort Worth and Arlington, Texas. And I got one in Arlington, Texas off of the MLS and put it on Craigslist, sold it in one day, made $7,000. I remember walking out of the title company, and I dressed nice that day. And then I was holding my $7,000 check, and I'm like, now I have to drive all the way to Denton to go do a roof for $7,000, and I'm going to keep maybe $700 of it.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, you know what? This $7,000 check sounds a lot better than all the hard work I'm going to go do on this roof in Denton. And I just really dove into the different strategies of acquiring properties. And January 1st of 2015, I said, I'm done with contracting. We're going to go full-time real estate investing. Probably one of the scariest decisions because I already had my construction company.
Right.
So I went into all of my people and I said, we're no longer doing construction. We're going to do real estate investing. And they all kind of looked at me like I was crazy. And I'm like, you can either come along for the ride or, feel free to jump off now. And everybody stayed with me. And we've had amazing success ever since then. And Titanium Investments, we didn't name it that until May of 2015. So technically that company hasn't been since January, but ever since then we've been full-time wholesaling and then also broken into fix and flips, buy and holds, subject twos, pretty much anything you can think of we've done at this point. And that's kind of where we are today. The main machine is wholesaling and then we're building up our own portfolio as well.
Fantastic. How many rentals do you have right now?
Right now we have 7, but before the end of the year, that should be up to 10. And that will be all acquired in 2016 with no money down. So none of our own money. We've been able to acquire all of those properties either through creative strategies or from borrowing from private lenders that we've been able to network and associate ourselves with. So that's probably one of my most proud moments for us is that we've been able to create all of this with very little money of our own money. It's all been either from our hard work or from our ability to learn creative real estate strategies to acquire properties.
Cool. So let's stay in that arena for just a second. So you do a few flips, you do the buy and hold. Tell me about some of the creative strategies you use to finance these properties. Break them down for me.
So, we come across a lot of people that are behind on payments and they're going into foreclosures. We like to do subject twos where subject to the existing mortgage. So they'll sign the deed over to us. We take over the payments. If they're behind on payments, a significant amount, then what we do is we bring on people that would love to get into real estate investing, but have a little bit of money, but they also have a full-time job and they're just interested. So we have people like that come to us and say, can you use X amount of dollars they have? Maybe they have $10, $20, $30,000. So we love to use their money, those funds to pay off the behind payments. So say somebody's behind $10,000 on payments, I bring in my private investor and I guarantee them a nice return. So sometimes we'll do between 10 and 20%. We guarantee them a very nice return for a very short amount of time until we can refinance the property. Once we refinance the property, we're cashing everybody out 100%. And we've just acquired that property that can cash flow for us for no money down.
Fantastic. So let's stay on subject two for just one more second. I bought subject two for a lot of years. And so I understand it really well, but I don't know that the audience does. And in fact, I was in a RIA meeting the day where somebody was asking about subject two and I kept explaining it and he kept kind of coming back and going, but it can't be that simple. So, and you and I know that it's a pretty simple process. So just explain to the audience what subject is from your perspective, what subject two is and how you go about doing it.
So from my perspective and from our experience, we come in with a purchase contract, with a warranty deed, and with a power of attorney. And we have the current owner of the property sign the deed over to us. They give us power of attorney over the property. And then we sign a contract saying that we have to maintain the payments and also catch up the behind payments on the property. We take that warranty deed and power of attorney down to the county clerks and we get it notarized as well. And they file it. The property is now owned by us. We are liable to make those payments. We also send a letter into the mortgage company, into the insurance company, letting them know what we are doing. You want to be careful that you don't cause too much of a red flag there because there is a due on sale clause on mortgage and they can call the loan.
Right.
You do want a little bit of a time frame there, so you have time to get it under everything squared away before you refinance. And but once everything's squared away at that point in time, you just catch up the payments. Usually what we do is then we turn it into a rental property for us. We get somebody in there that starts positively cash flowing. And then we take it to our normal lender and we refinance it out. And that's how we've used all of our subject twos at this point. There's been a couple where we didn't use as a rental property. We just sold them we listed them on the MLS and just sold them for the equity that we gained. Right. But, the great thing about this is you're helping the person who's behind on payments. They avoid foreclosure. They don't ruin their credit. And then usually you're gaining a significant amount of equity in the property. But the beautiful thing about this is it doesn't have to be so one-sided. There's been opportunities for us where we've also been able to help out that person where if they had, for example, the house was worth $150,000, they only owed $75,000. We didn't feel like it was right, and they didn't feel like it was right for us to gain $75,000 to help them out because they only needed help on the rehab side of things. So we were able to strike a contract where when we closed on the property, they got a check for $20,000.
Right.
They were thrilled with that. So the subject to strategy allows you to be creative and make everybody win at the end of the transaction.
Right.
That's why it's one of my favorite things to do. I mean, honestly.
Yeah, it was definitely my preferred way of doing business. And I was talking to somebody the other day and I'm like, I was kind of thinking, why aren't we doing it anymore? We need to get back to subject two. It was the only way I did things for the longest time. You said something in the conversation that kind of stood out to me. You said that you send a letter to the bank letting them know what you're doing. Do you actually send a letter to the bank saying we're buying this property subject to the loan? Is that what you do?
Yes. We send in a letter saying word for word exactly what we're doing. And the reason why is if they ever come back to call the loan, then we can go back and reference that letter and say, well, we did let you know. Because normally they call the loan because they find out unannounced or they find out what's going on. We want to be upfront about everything, and transparency usually allows the transaction to go smoothly. So we also, in the other reason why we do that is in case there was a need for us to file an insurance claim on the property while we owned it, we want to be able to make sure that insurance check, who also has to be endorsed by the mortgage lender, they know that check's going to be coming to us and not to the previous owner.
Right.
So the main thing that the reason why we do that is for the transparency to make sure that we are always covered in the transaction, and that if something awful were to happen to the property, for example, a fire, flood, hailstorm, here in Texas, we get hailstorms all the time, tornadoes. We want to make sure that we're not investing a significant amount of money and then at risk to lose it. So we want to make sure we cross our T's and dot our I's with all of our paperwork.
Okay, so you've done that. Have you ever had a lender come back and say no?
No.
Have you ever got a response? So let's put it that way. Have they ever responded in kind in any way, shape, or form?
The only way they've responded, Wells Fargo no longer allowed me to pay a mortgage online. I had to send a cashier's check in. I thought that was kind of weird. But outside of that, no. Never had a response letter. We've had many responses from the insurance companies. Almost every time the insurance company has sent us a letter back responding, sending us a new policy stating us as the new vested interest. But the mortgage company almost always is just silent to that letter.
Very interesting. In my day, we were very careful just to not say anything. We'd take it subject to, and we'd make the payments, and then we'd rehab it and resell it, and we wouldn't notify anybody. We'd place our own insurance on the property. So, to me, it's kind of a new angle for subject to for somebody that's actually been contacting the bank and having success and not having pushback. I mean, because, I am a big advocate of disclose everything, disclose everything. Mm-hmm. So if there is an opportunity to put the bank on notice that this is what you're doing and you can still do it successfully, then hey, I mean, that's by all means, that's the best way to go. So
The first time I did it, the only way I was going to do it is I made sure that we were immediately ready to refinance in case they called the loan.
Right.
And once the first time it happened, nothing happened. We had several months. From there on, it just became part of our process, and we've just never had issues with it. And so at this point, I don't even think twice about it. Of course, the first time I was very nervous, because like you said, you do your research on it, and a lot of people had the thought that you had,
Right.
which is just hush, hush, don't let them know, and everything will just work out in the end. But I didn't like that in the case of I'd read too many horror stories about how, lost investments, you lose the property, things like that. And I was willing to take the risk of, well, on this first one, if they call the loan, we immediately can refinance and we're okay. And ever since then, it's been great.
Well, yeah, my thought forever has been that subject to would not be a long-term play. It'd be a short-term play. And when I was using it, you'd buy subject to, you'd rehab and resell it. And so you basically turn the property within 3 or 4 months. And in my state, foreclosures take 3 months and 21 days, period. So if the bank was ever to call the loan due and start the foreclosure process, I would have already rehabbed it, sold it, and been out of it. And so,
Right.
So I never wanted to poke the bear. But,
Right.
in a market, I think where banks are a little bit more aware of things, and more particular about things since the financial collapse, it might be best to notify them of these things. So that leads me into a question of what's the longest you've held a property subject to? Have you had one that you've held longer than a few months in the subject to
I have
position?
one right now that we are eclipsing 12 months as we speak.
And
I don't have really any intentions of refinancing it because the interest rate that I have on it is so low and there's no issues. So I have it prepared to be, we could refinance it in 2 weeks if we needed to.
Right.
But right now the interest rate on it's like 3.25%. I mean, the previous owner he's not pushing me to sell it. He has no desire to go buy a new house or anything like that. So he's fine with us keeping the mortgage in his name as is. So
Right.
we'll probably do it in the next year, but 12 months is the longest that we've had on one so far.
With no issues.
Yep, no issues.
Okay. So I guess the disclaimer here is always have an exit strategy, either the ability to resell it immediately or refinance it. And, just be, I guess, careful about how you go about it. And the other thing I want to say to the audience is, when you buy subject to, you are taking responsibility for that monthly payment. And it is very important that you honor that because you are affecting somebody else's credit if you're not making that payment. So you got to make sure that payment is made and made on time every month. So that's something that the audience needs to be very well aware of.
I am. And on that note, I would say I'm very passionate about that subject. And I think it's one of the most important things to discuss with new investors that learn the subject to strategy. Mm-hmm. This is not like a typical transaction where, okay, you're going to go get a property under contract. You're going to do a 5-day option period and maybe you need to back out. No, this is a long-term commitment that you're making to that seller. And really, they are putting a lot of control in your hands saying, please do me right. Like, please take care of this the way you're going to. The number one thing that I have to sell when I go to a homeowner's house and sit down with them about the subject to strategy is that I'm not going to turn their story into a horror story that they read on the internet.
Right.
And, it's sad that there's other people out there that do that. If you do go down this strategy, you need to honor your word and stick to the commitment because if you've convinced someone to turn over that much to you, you owe it to them to handle the business correctly.
Exactly. I agree. So, okay, so that leads me into my next question. When you meet with sellers, I always get asked about subject to if I get pushback from sellers. Do you get a lot of pushback from sellers when you bring up subject to and how do you handle that pushback if you get it?
Normally I pick and choose when I bring up that strategy. I'm not going to go into that strategy probably in the first 30 minutes of talking to them. I'm going to really feel out what's their background, what's the story, how did they get in this situation? I'm also going to make sure that we see the property because I want to see what kind of condition the property's in. And the pushback that we've received is that, yeah, I'm in a bad spot, but I'm not just going to hand over all the equity that I've gained in this property to you. That's probably the most pushback that we receive.
Right.
As far as, I would say majority of the time, though, when we do bring up subject to, the people are like, thank you so much for saving us from this horrible, foreclosure and bad credit for the next 7, 8, 10 years. And that is the normal response that we receive. And I mean, I've had people crying and hugging me and, giving me hand-drawn paintings that they've, done themselves because they were so thankful that we got them out of the bad spot. So normally if we pick and choose our homeowners correctly, it's a great meeting that are very happy with what comes about from the meeting. And then also, like I said, this strategy opens you up to be creative where maybe they can make some money in the transaction as well. Right. I mean, if there's enough equity there and you're going, okay, I can come in here and do 1 week's worth of work, put this on the MLS, sell it. I can make a significant amount of money, great return on investment. And yeah, maybe they can make $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 and that changes their life. Right. They went from being financial struggles, looking at foreclosure to that house is now, that burden is gone. And now they have $15,000 in their pocket. You want to talk about getting good reviews online. You do that for somebody, you get rave reviews. And then you can use that the next time you sit down with somebody and talk about subject to, say, well, look at these homeowners I've helped. And that allows you to grow your business and your reputation in your market.
Right. Perfect. Yeah. Very, very cool. So I want to just kind of interject here real quick that in different states there are different foreclosure laws. And so if you're listening to this and you want to work with people who are in default in any way, shape, or form, it's very important to check with your state. I know in California, it's Section 1695 of the California Civil Code dictates how we buy homes in foreclosure. And that was, covers one of the things you talked about, equity, where in our state, it says that you can't take, it's basically legal jargon for you can't take advantage of the equity, but it doesn't define, if they have $100,000 in equity and you give them $5,000, is that taking advantage? Or if they have $100,000 in equity and you give them $90,000, is that taking advantage? So it's just very important to, in your state, check with, your local real estate attorney or your state's laws before you get into the arena of buying foreclosure. So I wanted to interject that for the audience to make sure that they cover their butts, right?
Exactly.
So anyway, so private money, you brought up private money to finance your deals. Mm-hmm. How did you find your private money lenders? How do you go about making that happen?
Man, private money people are everywhere. You never know where they're going to come from. Probably my favorite story about private money is I'm Facebook friends with my old high school football coach, and he sees me share Titanium Investments Facebook post and success stories. And out of nowhere, he sends me a message and says, man, I've saved up X amount of dollars, and my goal was to get into buy and holds. I wanted to do rentals, and that was going to be my retirement strategy. And now you're in real estate investing. Can you help me get there? And that was an amazing day for me to get to sit down with my old high school football coach and discuss how my company can help him go down his retirement path. And so now we use his money to facilitate smaller transactions. We're going to build up enough money where he can go out and he can start buying rental properties, and we have a plan and a strategy in place for him. Other ways that we've done it that are not so one-off scenarios is we've just put our name out there and tried to connect with people to explain our different strategies and then guarantee a return. If you're confident in your strategy, you're confident in what you're doing, you can guarantee a return greater than most people can. And that will allow you to do more transactions when you're getting started. that's always been my strategy is I don't necessarily, if I offer more money to my lenders, then more people will want to allow me to borrow their money. And if I can just make sure that I'm confident, so when we go in and we do subject twos or we get off market leads, the ones that we choose not to wholesale, we just make sure that they're very secure investments, newer builds, brick homes, very minimal rehab, flooring, paint, appliances, things like that are very simple to facilitate quick rehabs. We guarantee a great return for our lender. We can turn those a lot quicker. And then the more money you start making your lenders, the more money they have to give you. So that's been the number one way that we've been able to gain lenders is through putting our name out there with success stories. And then when they come to you, offer a bigger return than most investors are. And so we've been able to get, family members from real estate agents we use. We've been able to get family members from employees that work for me, people from past lifetimes like my football coach or my partner, Cassie's basketball coach. Just people come out of the woodworks, man, when they know you're making money and they see success stories, they want to be involved and they will say, hey, I've got $10,000. Can you help me? Absolutely. I've got a house over here. It's $10,000 behind on payments. I'll give you a 20% return for 60 days. They're all in every day. So
definitely. Yeah.
That's how we've been able to do it. So.
Well, fantastic. And when you say guarantee, you mean extremely managed risk, right? Extremely carefully managed risk. So
yes.
Yeah, I always tell people that, we go the extra mile to make sure that, we've covered our bases. We have a contingency plan. We have a cushion in there. We've budgeted for all potential risks and everything else. So, if there ever is an issue with the property, there's going to be plenty of money to make the lender whole for whatever we've agreed to pay them. So it's very important.
I'm not going to lie. Having a construction background helps
Absolutely.
in that. So when I walk properties, it's a little bit easier for me to see the unknowns outside of someone that doesn't have that background. But also managing the risk of when we come in and it's going to be a property that we're going to keep ourselves. For example, last week we walked a property. It literally only needed carpet. Okay. That is about as minimal risk as you can get on an investment. So that's one that's like, I'm not going to wholesale that. I'm going to keep that one. And we're able to give the seller the amount that she wants. And we can take on a private lender who's going to make a very nice return. And there's still plenty enough of return on investment for us. So those are normally the very minimal risk kind of properties that we try to do ourselves.
Right. Perfect. Fantastic. So, I came across you on Facebook. Facebook's where I found you, and you had posted some checks. So, and a little backstory behind them. And it looks like you're absolutely killing it in the wholesale arena. So tell me a little about how you are making your wholesale business successful. What are some of your tips and strategies in that arena?
So we had a business already set up. We had employees and we went to real estate investing. So it's kind of like, how do these people now work for us? And we basically didn't have a blueprint in front of us. We tried to create positions for them. And one of the things that right off the bat that I saw people say, don't neglect the MLS. You can wholesale properties off the MLS. So we immediately created a position of what we call property analysts. And they're some of the hardest working people that we have for us. And we literally just let them scour through MLS portals, Zillow, Trulia, Craigslist, wherever we can find properties. And we're putting in offers through those all day, every day. As far as off market goes, we have everything that you can basically do on marketing. The number one question I get asked is, what's the best marketing strategy? Well, we created a business and then we market it like we're a business. So we have our websites. We have a main page website. We have a motivated seller website. We have a investor website. And then we do mailers. We do social media marketing. we go out and, if we see a distressed property and we're driving by, we will door knock on it. We'll do whatever we need to do to create those leads. And then from there, we have the other side of the business where we have been able to grow an enormous buyers list. And the number one thing that I've seen that works for us is we have buyers that are out of state. I see a lot of wholesalers that aren't able to move properties because they only try to stick to local investors. And the problem with that is a lot of those local guys don't need a wholesaler. They can go get the properties themselves.
Right.
But me, if I have a buyer who's in California, he can't go drive by that house that has boarded up windows. He didn't see that. I saw that. And so, but he wants to invest in Texas because it's cheaper in California. So he loves the deals that I bring to him. And we just did that over and over and over again. And I would say at this point, it's very rare do we sell a property to a person who lives in the same state. And we're wholesaling in multiple states. It's funny. I'll sell a property to someone in Texas and they live in California and vice versa. It's funny how that works. People love to invest in states that they're not in. So
right.
We just, the number one thing for us is we haven't neglected one part of the business. We don't say you can't wholesale property off the MLS, or we didn't just stick to one version of marketing. We went out there and we found all the different ways, and we're always trying to get better at it. We're by no means perfect, but all day, every day, we're working on trying to find new creative ways to bring us motivated sellers and buyers.
Man, you just opened up a whole box of questions for me. I don't know if we're going to be able to get them all in one podcast. I'm going to tell you that right now. So, okay. So I'm going to jump all the way back to the beginning where you said you created an analyst position. Is that what you called it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Two questions that I have. One is, I guess you already answered it, is, what do they do? And they scour everything, basically everything they can get their eyes on, right?
So yes. So I gave them a spreadsheet. It has the rehab side of things, and then it has the numbers. They fill out that entire spreadsheet. They upload it to our system. Our system is nothing fancy. It's free. Trello. Anybody can have it. It's an app. You can use it on your desktop, and they upload the properties there. And then either myself, Nikki, or Cassie review those properties, and then we put in the offer. If it's MLS, it goes to our agent. If it's off market, then we're putting in the offer ourselves directly to the seller.
Okay.
And they're telling my analysts, their job is to tell me what's the ARV, what's the rehab, and they should have a full analysis of what this property is to them. If they're the investor, they're building a bridge for me. And then we go in and we just verify. So by the time we put an offer in, it's already been through 3-4 sets of eyes before an offer even goes out. And 95% of our offers are blind. We're based off of pictures, descriptions, pictures sent to us from motivated sellers. Our theory is the more offers we can put out, the more we're going to get accepted. And so we're trying to put out quality offers, but also volume on top of that as well.
Right. How do you pay the analyst? Is it a salary position? Is it a commission position?
They get a small salary, but then it's also a commission off the profit when we wholesale it.
Okay. So you took somebody that was in construction, I'm assuming in some drywall or framer or, carpenter or something like that, and you taught them how to analyze properties, basically.
Most of these people were office workers. So to give you a better idea of who these people are, majority of them are stay-at-home moms that needed part-time work, and we were offering them positions. And so now this is even better for them. They can stay at home. They can do everything that we need them to do from their house.
Right.
And it's really blossomed for us, to be honest with you. At first it was scary, don't know if this is going to work. They're asking me questions on what happens if they don't get a property, and how do they control what kind of profit we're going to make. And it's turned into just, an amazing opportunity for them. They love it. They get to stay at home, take care of their babies, take care of their house, and then also make money, which is exactly what they wanted. So it's been an amazing opportunity for us to have them as employees.
That's just, it's fantastic. I want to just totally give you props and point out to anybody who's listening how incredible that is. And that's a lot of people, they think that building a team is, you got to find somebody who knows everything already.
Right.
You just got to find the people who are willing to do the work and willing to learn. And then you just you mold them into what you want them to be. I mean, some of the best people I have in my organization are people that I molded them into their position. So,
well, I have to say, since you're going to talk about this a little bit longer, I have to throw it out there. The first property analyst we ever had was Megan. Megan will love it that I'm name dropping her on this. And what was amazing about it was she knew nothing about real estate, but the pride that she has and the fact that she's a badass at her job now, and the fact that she can go to her family and say, I'm a real estate property analyst. That's what I do. That's my career. And it just seeing the pride that she has in that. There's probably nothing, there's very few things that I've had that are much better than seeing that come from basically nothing. She helped us create the role. There was no role, and seeing there was no knowledge behind that, but creating it together, seeing her blossom in it, and seeing the pride that she has in that position now. It's one of the best things about being the boss and being the owner, man. That's you can't change it. Makes the difficult days all worth it.
Oh yeah. To be able to provide for your team, that is an incredible feeling for sure. So I totally agree with you on that one. And that's just, again, props. I mean, that's fantastic, man.
Thank you.
That's really, I'm a little jealous. So I'm not going to lie. I got a good team. I got a good organization, but hey, I might have to come learn from you a little bit. So for sure. So God, like I said, I have so many questions. I'm definitely going to have to have you back on for sure, because I'm not going to be able to hit them all. But I guess the next thing I'll hit is wholesaling off the MLS. That'll probably be one of the last things to talk about today. Tell me about how you approach wholesaling off the MLS, because I know that's a touchy subject for flippers like myself and stuff. So how do you go about that and create value?
So I'll start right off the bat with the last thing you said, creating value. That comes from our buyers list. How we've created our buyers list allows us to create value for different people in different ways. For someone who is an investor in California, so I'll use you as an example. Say you come to me and you say, man, I want a property in Texas. Mm-hmm. So we already have access to where we can find properties in Dallas-Fort Worth, Austin, San Antonio, Houston. All of those markets are going to be much more affordable markets than markets in California. So that's why we get buyers that want to come to Texas. And maybe they don't know the area. So yes, it's on the MLS and anybody can put that offer in there. But the other thing is I'm not going to go put in an offer on an MLS property at list price.
Right.
A good example of this is we had a property on Swiss Avenue in Dallas. It's probably one of the most famous streets in all of Dallas. The list price was $400,000. But to make the property work, our offer was $300,000. They accepted it. No counter, nothing. No terms countered whatsoever. We put an offer in for $300,000. They accepted it. We then turned around and wholesaled that to an investor in California for $320,000. We make her $20,000, and he found a property that turned into a great investment on one of the most famous streets in Dallas. Otherwise, he would have never known about.
Right.
Could he have developed a team here in Dallas to find that property? Sure. But he found that team in Titanium Investments. That's what we were. Right. We already had the knowledge of Dallas. We already had the property. We then helped them find contractors, find hard money lenders. One of the things that we differentiate ourselves from majority of wholesalers that I've seen is we provide as much information as we possibly can. When I send you a property, I'm sending you, this is my estimated ARV. based off of these comps. This is my rehab budget based off of this estimate from this contractor that I recommend because he's done this many jobs for me. And then here's a hard money lender. Here's his terms. And they've already pre-approved this property.
Right.
That's how we present our wholesale properties. So the value is it's turnkey. I mean, they're looking at it saying it's all there. I sign a contract. I bring X amount of dollars to closing. I don't need to do anything else. So that's one of the ways we've been able to wholesale MLS properties is that we do a lot more than just get it under contract and email it out and say, trust those numbers. I have nothing to verify them. We're very thorough with following through and verifying our own numbers and sending it out and saying, here's our story for this property.
Right.
This is what we believe. If we were going to do this property, this is what we would do. This is who we would use. And this is how we believe it would perform.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's amazing. That's something I want to point out, especially for somebody who's getting into wholesaling. To differentiate yourself from, other wholesalers out there is to provide that extra step, that service, to take the guesswork out, right? The worst thing from a flipper's perspective for a wholesaler to do is send us a property and tell us, hey, it only needs $5,000 in rehab when it's like half burnt or, just so dated that it obviously needs 30 or 40 grand to get it to the ARV, and then their ARV is wrong. So
right.
to be, at where it should be or close to where it should be. I don't expect everybody that's wholesaling to have that knowledge because they may not have construction business, but just to be close in your numbers and realistic and maybe provide that extra step of doing some things. That's fantastic. And that's obviously why you're successful. So
you don't manufacture a property.
Right.
Like you can't manufacture the numbers. The numbers are what they are.
Right.
And it's hard. Like 99% of the properties you're going to look at are not good ones. I mean, all day, every day, we have people looking and it failing. Like,
right.
No, denied. That's not good. Not good. When we get one, man, it is like Mardi Gras in here because we finally found one that hit our numbers. And that's the main thing. You said you found me on Facebook. And so I told a story on a Facebook group that we're both members of. And from that came a lot of other wholesalers that wanted to work with me. And they sent me properties. And I was shocked at the lack of information they sent me.
Right.
I mean, honestly, I don't normally get an influx of emails from wholesalers, but I did over the past week or so, and I was blown away at the lack of information. No comps, no rehab budget, no contractor had looked at it. It was just guesswork, and it really made me ask, like, how can you sell properties that way? I could never sell properties that way. I consider myself a pretty good salesperson. I don't think I could sell properties that way. And my advice to those wholesalers was, you need to go that extra step. Don't rely on your ability to sell something. Let the property sell itself. Just put together all the numbers. Make it easy for the investor to say yes. Don't make them feel like you're trying to, cover up something from them or shade them from the truth. And it's amazing. You'll see the results. I mean, we very, very rarely have to release a property because we couldn't wholesale it or none of our strategies worked because of that extra step that we go.
Well, I mean, that's, you said something earlier on that this is a business and you treat it like a business, and that makes it very obvious that that's the case. And a lot of people getting into this arena, I don't think they realize that they need to have that perspective, right? I mean, you hear, how easy it is to wholesale, and it is. It's really easy to make money, but it's not just grab a property and throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. You're not doing the seller any justice. You're not doing your buyer any justice. You're not doing yourself any justice. If you treat it like a business and take those extra steps. I have a guy that I buy from on a regular basis, and he's only missed his resale number for me once. His rehab's always on point. His resale's always on point. And so I literally don't even look at the properties anymore. He sends it to me, says this is what it is, and I buy it. And I love that relationship because it saves him time. Right. It saves me time. and we both make money. And man, if all the wholesalers I worked with could be that way, it'd be like, it'd just be so awesome, man, to use it.
And that's the thing. I strive to be just like that guy.
Right.
I mean, we're not perfect on our numbers.
Right.
We recently had a property where we missed a rehab by like $10,000. And I mean, for us, we take that seriously. I mean, that was, hey guys, come in here. Where did we mess up? Like, that can't happen again, because that way it was a great buyer of ours.
Right.
And they rely on us. That's another thing. That buyer was in Austin, and she was buying a property up here in Fort Worth. Right. And she relied on us to be correct on our numbers, and we weren't. And, it's also how you handle those situations. We don't turn a blind eye to that. We've worked out an arrangement where we're going to make that right for her. And that's because of our connections with contractors. And that's also with the relationship that we would have with her as a buyer. She's going to come back to us. She's going to buy more properties from us. We can make that situation right, because it's more important to me to have that relationship with that buyer than it is about, maintaining the dollars and cents that we made off of a wholesale property. I need her to buy 100 properties from me, not one. So that's also, I wish, probably the number one thing I wish most wholesalers' attitude is at like each buyer that you have is going to buy 100 properties from you. How do you treat them? You treat them a lot different than you do if you just are trying to move that one property,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, we as wholesalers, actually it took me a while, man. I'll be honest, like a year before I could call myself a wholesaler. Because I didn't want to associate myself with that word. It was almost like embarrassing, because I was like, I don't want to be thought of as like a thief or like a snake in the grass, because I feel like the word wholesaler has that reputation with some investors.
Right.
And one of the things that we're trying to do is change that reputation a little bit. It's hard work though. It's hard what we do, because we are the middleman who's predicting a lot of outcomes.
Right.
And it's not always in our hands how that outcome comes about. Like you said, your guy's only been off on the resale value by once. That's awesome. He also knows how good of a rehabber you are.
Right.
Sometimes people aren't good at rehabbing, and then those property values can be off a little bit because of how a property was rehabbed. So
right.
There's a lot of things that play into this. I just, it's not as easy as some of those guru programs make it out to be. I'll say that.
No, it's not. It sometimes it takes a little longer to get started. There's definitely more to it. I mean, it can be that easy if you're not in it for the long-term play. That's something you just said. You treat your buyers like they're going to buy 100 properties from you. And that's something, I think I've said it in another podcast. I always tell my wholesalers, look, I'm not going to be the guy maybe that's going to pay you the biggest amount on this deal. I may pay you a little less because that's where my numbers are at. And like you said earlier, another genius thing you said, and I quote you on, is that you can't manufacture the numbers. You can't make them up. They are what they are. So,
right.
I always tell them, this is where the number's at. I'm good at what I do. I rehab, a lot of properties. And so this is where the number's at. And I may not be the guy that pays you the most, but I'm the guy that's going to buy every property that you get in contract that makes sense for the next 10, 20 years.
Right.
And so you can go to the guy who's going to pay you the most right now, and then he's going to lose his butt on this deal, and he's not going to buy from you again for a long time. Or you can come sell to me, and I'm going to buy every property. So
I'm going to tell you, as a wholesaler, if
right.
you told me that, I'm going to tell you, you tell me exactly what your numbers are and how you're figuring them.
Right.
And I'm going to be coming to you every day with properties.
Right.
Why do I need anybody else?
Exactly.
You just told me you'll buy all of them.
Right. So, and it comes down to relationships. And that's what I think that,
right.
I don't ever want to bash, there's some gurus out there that give some great information. I buy from wholesalers. I love wholesalers. So I'm not in the bash anybody business, but I just want to stress that I think the key thing that's missing, and I think it's missing in a lot of people's businesses across the board, is the relationship, the rapport. When you're talking to sellers, people seem to miss building the rapport,
right.
to get that deal done. We're talking with buyers, you miss building the rapport to sell to them and build the confidence and the trust long term. and so on and so forth. And you've done such a good job, from what I can see. And that's obviously why you're successful. You built the foundation, you built the trust, you built the rapport, you care about your business, you care about your sellers, you care about your buyers. And I just commend you for that, man. I don't want to say it's rare in this business, but you're starting to see sometimes a lot more of the other side of it. And the people that my prediction is the people that are going to be around for a long time in this business and successful for a long time are the people like you, for sure.
I appreciate that. And I'll be honest with you, it was difficult for me to make the transition going to my family and telling my family, this is what I'm going to do.
Right.
And they all kind of looked at me and said, that's a scary business to be in. And are you sure? And the reputation that this industry kind of has is that it can be unstable. And what I'm realizing is that there are some truths to that. I'm not going to deny it. And so I don't want to get bashed that I don't know what I'm talking about, but it's also some people that are in the industry make it unstable for themselves.
Right.
Like you said, building those relationships. If I have my go-to buyers, I have my go-to vendors, and people ask me all the time, who are the most important people in a transaction? My real estate agent, my escrow officers. I mean, I love my title person here in Dallas-Fort Worth, Dana Walker. I mean, she is unbelievable. She's so trustworthy, and I can trust her with anything. She trusts me. The relationship side of things is critical to the success of being a wholesaler, or even if you are just a rehabber. I mean, building a relationship with your contractors and your subcontractors, because eventually if you're going to be doing this full time, you should have subcontractors for different trades that you're hiring out. It's critical that you hold yourself to a higher accountability and that you're always a trustworthy client for those contractors. You're always paying on time. You're also trustworthy to your lenders as well. So right. I absolutely agree that relationship building is probably the number one key to success and everything that we do in this industry.
Right, exactly. So, okay, now I'm going to ask you a question here, and I don't want you to give me an exact number because I don't want to make any income claims, but give me a roundabout because it's something you mentioned in your post. So, just to point out what your mentality, your attitude has caused your success to become. For 2016, what is a roundabout your income going to look like?
For the entire company? The entire company, our revenue will probably be about $1.2 million.
Right. Exactly. So,
and that's all from wholesaling. And it sounds like we have a large team, the perception that I'm giving off, but there's really not that much of us. So it has been, 2016 has been a life-changing year for a lot of us. I'll say that.
Right. And I don't generally, in fact, I don't think to this point, I'm only, I'm not years into podcasting, but I've never to this point asked anybody to mention that. But I wanted to point that out with you because I really want to stress that it is the underlying truth to success is building relationships and caring about the end result for the people you're dealing with, for the seller, for the buyer, like I said earlier, building relationships, like you said, with your contractor, with agents, with escrow officers. If you build a team of people that you take care of and look out for, they will take care of and look out for you. And that is what's allowed me to be successful in my business. And that's obviously what's allowed you to be successful in your business. So I just want to stress that to the highest level to the audience, that if you attack this business with the right mentality, which obviously, RJ, you have, only good things are going to come. You're going to have trials and tribulations and struggles, don't get me wrong, but the end result is going to be fantastic. So, absolutely. Yeah. And, I appreciate all those kind words you just said about us. And the thing for me is that this year was great, but I see the direction of our company only increasing. This was a lot. We did a lot of learning this year, and we just started acquiring our own properties. That is only going to increase our ability to do even more in 2017. Right. And going back to the relationship building things, and you talked to me about private money people, and there's a lot of this that's it's a reciprocal circle, man. And the relationship that I built with my real estate agent here, Jenna,
she saw how we handled our business. She saw how we handled difficult transactions and how we handled that. And over time, she said, hey, you want a private money lender? Let me introduce you to my parents and my grandparents because they want to invest with you.
Right.
And that's how we gained private money.
Right.
You know? I mean, we did a whole year for 2015. We didn't have private money. And then everybody saw how we handled that. And then now we have private money coming to us. Right. It doesn't happen overnight. You have to show up every day. And that's another thing that drives me crazy. Just because you're your own boss and you're running your own business, every day I wake up and it's a constant grind.
Right.
All day, every day.
Right.
Last night, I was on the phone till midnight on a deal in Hawaii, talking to a listing agent with my partner in Hawaii. We're figuring out how we're going to do it. I was dead tired, but it doesn't matter because you know what? That's going to be great for the podcast I'm going to do in 2017 about a deal I did in Hawaii. So,
right.
You know, it's just that mentality that you have to have of it's not going to be easy, but I'm going to make this work. And I know that this is something that can really, you can achieve great results. I don't know if I would have been able to achieve some of the same results that we're achieving now doing contracting or doing remodeling or roofing or whatever it was we were doing.
Right.
This has allowed us that opportunity. Same effort, just better results because we're in a better industry and it allows us to have those opportunities.
Really cool, man. Really cool. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up, but I definitely am going to be hitting you up again in the future, and we're going to break down some other things. Yeah, you've opened, like I said, a big old box of questions for me that we're not going to have time to get to today, but that's fantastic.
Next time you can have them written down for me. You just dive into the more specific ones.
I will, most definitely. I think the more you and I talk, though, the more I'm going to want to take it in different directions because you obviously have some great knowledge. So
thank you.
Tell me about how to get a hold of you. How does the audience go about getting a hold of you?
It's funny. I've done another podcast, and when I got asked that question, I was caught so off guard. I was like, man, you can call me on my cell phone number. And I got called the day it got broadcast, I got called by 2 wholesalers, and we bought 2 properties from those wholesalers. So I have to give my phone number.
Okay.
817-915-6860. But you can find us on our website, titaniumprops.com, and we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. Find me any of those places under Titanium Investments or RJ Bates III. And we're always looking for investors to partner with, work with, buy properties, sell properties, and we're always looking for wholesalers to give advice to, work with, partner, co-wholesale with. So reach out to me if you have questions. I do my very best to answer every single question that comes across my plate. So feel free to reach out.
Okay, give me that phone number one more time.
817-915-6860.
Okay, so if somebody calls you and you buy a proproperty, I want to cut of that. No, I'm just kidding. So anyway,
I'll give you a cut. I won't promise you what kind.
No, I'm messing with you, man. I will definitely, I got my fingers crossed for you that'll lead to a property. So, all right, buddy. Well, I really appreciate you being here today. It's been really, really cool. And yeah, man. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. Look forward to listening to us again.
Perfect. All right. Well, there you go. RJ Bates. I told you that one was going to be a good one. And as you can see in the podcast, I get really kind of almost excited about the direction I can go with a lot of these questions. And, RJ's just, like I said, he's one of the nicest guys, and he is looking at his business the right way. He's running his business the right way. This business, to me, is about relationships. It's about building a foundation of relationships, networking, getting yourself out there, making a good name for yourself. And I think a lot of people, they get away from that. They get into more of let's make the buck, the quick buck right now, the fast buck right now, the right now money. And they don't really focus on the foundation of their business and the relationships that you need to really be successful long term. And RJ definitely is one of those guys that has the right focus, that has the right mentality, that looks at things the way they're supposed to be looked at. And I really do think he's going to be in business for a long time. He's somebody definitely I'm going to look forward to doing some business with in the future. So, yeah, I enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And like I said in the intro, I'm definitely going to have RJ back on. I threatened to have all my guests back on as I talk to them, but RJ is definitely one that I will be talking to and picking his brain a lot more for you guys. He is definitely somebody that has a lot of great knowledge, and like I said, he's open and willing to share. So, as you know, this is the Flip Talk Podcast, and this is episode 11, the episode 11 of the Flip Talk Podcast. You can go to fliptalk.com/11 to get the show notes. You can always reach out to us at topics@fliptalk.com if you have a question that you want answered about the show, anything that you want covered. We'll definitely try to get that information on the episode. As always, if you feel like we're giving you good information and you like what we're bringing you and you want to hear more of it, definitely show us some love and head over to iTunes and rate and review the show. Fliptalk.com is an asset for you as well. And until I talk to you again, have a wonderful day.
Thank you for listening to the Flip Talk Podcast.
If you find value in the information we share, please make sure you subscribe and help us grow our audience.
For more information about this podcast, its hosts, or to get show notes, visit fliptalk.com.
If you have questions, comments, or suggestions, feel free to email us at topics@fliptalk.com. Who knows? We may answer your questions on the show.
You can contact Don directly at don@fliptalk.com, and you can visit us on Facebook at facebook.com/FlipTalkREI.
From all of the team here at Flip Talk, thank you so much for listening. We know you have choices, and we're glad to be one of them.